Is that okay if I record you guys? And hopefully this camera will work for everyone. I'm gonna take a drink. What time is it? Does anyone need to take a break? No? And feel free to shout out and interrupt me. Interrupt me if you don't understand something or I'm going too fast. I'm happy to help you guys out. Happy to answer a question, so I'm not just talking.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
Um, I've heard you use the word sloper a couple of times, and I was just wondering what the definition of that is.
Okay, so I have an image here. I'm going to go back to share screen. How come it's not showing? Um, Hang on. Can you guys see this? It says pattern making 101.
Yes.
Okay. So this is a sloper, what it looks like. I'm sorry I didn't bring a bunch of them to show you. So some people call it a basic block too. So it's just trying to get these hands out of the way there. So it's basically this guy, my muslin, flattened out. Does that make sense? So your slopers are gold as a designer, or for you guys, when you walk away with your bodice, you're gonna have a front and a back bodice sloper, and they're gonna be in manila paper, that yellow manila paper, the thick cardstocky paper. We're gonna put our slopers are always in that thick paper. Um, and you use that to create designs. So I'm going to be showing you how to do a slash and spread and how to do pivot and create designs. You'll create designs with that sloper that's on the screen right there. It's shaped like a bodice, the half bodice. It has a dart. So we're going to make a 2-dart sloper right here on our dress form today, and I'm going to show you how to pivot and create a 1-dart after we get back in the class. So it's paper, a sloper is paper, it's shaped like that. That's a bodice sloper. There's a pant sloper, there's a skirt sloper. Let's see, we have front and back bodice, front and back pant, front and back skirt. And then you can also have other types of slopers. You can have a 2-dart torso sloper, but that's more advanced pattern making. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. We're just going to be kind of focusing on the bodice, the skirt, and the sleeve and pant. When you get into Clo 3D, you're going to see a whole sloper set, all of the pieces. But us technically pattern making traditionally, we're only going to be doing the bodice sloper from scratch. The sleeve sloper, pants sloper, skirt sloper, those I'm going to provide to you. You're not going to make them from scratch. You're only making the bodice sloper from scratch because it takes a lot of time to make them. I hope that answers your question. A little long-winded, but you'll see it when we get in class. It's a piece of paper. It's a piece of paper that's shaped like your bodice. And if it's a pant sloper, it's a piece of paper that's shaped like a pant leg. Um, And I'll show that to you when we get in class, okay? Does that, is that okay? Is that a deal? My plan for next week is to go on a field trip, and I wanted to run that by all you guys. What do you guys think about that? Is that a yay or a nay?
That sounds good, yeah.
Um, so I want to go to this factory that's in downtown LA. Um, can you guys carpool? Are you guys, does anyone have a car? No?
I do, but I would have to go from Hillside.
You would go from Hillside?
Oh, I realized that it's still remote next week, correct?
Yeah, it's remote again next week, so I was trying to Sewing Lab, they're all going on their field trip. But they always go second week. Me, I'm usually in the sewing lab and we're working, but it's hard. You guys can't have they're not letting you have your dress forms. You can't check out the dress forms. So if we don't do a field trip, you're just going to be sitting like this again, watching another demo, and you won't be able to actually work. So it's hard to, you won't get the work done. You'll have to do it outside of class time. So I was originally planning on taking you guys on a field trip after the midterm, but I could just switch it to next week. And so instead of losing class time, we do the field trip. There's a factory, they do like product development for small designers. They do samples, small production, and they have a small group of sewers. They have a couple pattern makers. They use the Gerber pattern making software. It's pretty interesting to go see them and talk to them and see what it's like. If you ever wanted to have your own clothing line, you could hire them to make samples for you, to work with you on, they have different packages, but you get to see the sewers, you get to see the cutting, you get to see the patterns, how they're printed on their Gerber technology. And sometimes it's nice to just hands-on be in the element. So I'd love to do that. If we go though, I would meet all of you here at like 2 o'clock in the parking lot. And then if we could carpool, I can't take people with me because it's like a liability, but there's only, I think, 6 of us, or 6 of you. So maybe if you had 2 cars and you guys shared, but if
Um, this is for next week, right?
next week, yep.
Yeah, actually, I'm taking the sewing lab on the same day, but in the morning. So I'm doing the field trip on the same day, so I'll already be
Down
in
there.
downtown.
Okay. Well, then we don't have to do the field trip. We'll do
Oh,
this.
no, 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 no. I didn't mean it that way. I just meant
Oh,
I don't have to carpool, so
oh,
it'll
you
be
don't need a ride.
less seats.
Can you drive yourself over to the factory?
Um,
Will you have a car or will
I
you
don't
be?
have a car, but I can find a way because my friend who's in my sewing lab class can maybe drop me off.
Okay.
Yes.
If
So,
you can get a ride, um, then that would be great, Tiffany.
Um, this
Mignon,
is I won't be able to make it next week. I'll be in Mexico with a visa interview.
you're gonna be doing what?
Yeah, I have a visa interview trip in Mexico,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and that might extend to week 3. And yeah, I have to talk to you after class about that.
Oh no, okay. We'll talk at the end of class. So you won't be going. Tiffany will get there on her own. So that's only 4. Um, Chloe, you could drive?
I do have a car, but I realized I'm already in downtown LA currently. I'm staying here, and so I won't be in Pasadena.
So you're not going to be at class next week?
Um, I I could drive to Pasadena, but I'm already in downtown
Oh,
LA.
you're going to be in downtown LA in the morning.
Yes, I'm staying here because I can't stay at my home currently.
Okay. Um, okay, so Tiffany has a way to get there. Chloe, you're already there. Would you be able to get yourself there?
Yes, I can get there.
So, Mignon, you won't be here next week, but Howard and Tony and Hanson, what about you guys?
I can drive you there next week.
Howard can drive?
No, I don't have a car.
Who said they could drive?
I can.
Can you say your name?
Hanson?
Oh, Hanson, you can drive. Can you fit like Tony and Howard?
Yeah, where do you guys live?
I'm next to South Campus.
Oh yeah, yeah, I think that works.
Well, I would have all of you guys, we'd all meet here. So, Hanson, if you're driving, you would meet here in the parking lot. I would meet you here, and then, I mean, if that's convenient, and then, Howard
Okay.
and Tony, can you guys meet here too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because I live in Palmdale actually, but yeah, it should be fine. I should be able to. It's just my car right now is like having issues, but it should be fine by then.
So do we
You would
meet
have
at
to get
South
here
Campus?
anyway. Oh, you're living in
Yeah,
Palmdale anyway. Oh, you're living in Palmdale. So, are you going to be able to be here th week 3?
oh yeah, definitely. It's more because of
Okay.
like maintenance thing. It's fine though. It
Okay.
should be fine by next week. Yeah.
Well, if Hanson can drive, let's talk after class is over, the three of us, the three of you and me, okay?
Okay.
Because I would love for us to do the field trip, and it's the perfect timing because we're remote and we can't get that much done when we're remote like this, right? And then you can still have the field trip. Otherwise, I might have to take the field trip away, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so yeah, yay. Yays, give me voices because I can't see you guys very well.
Yes. Yay.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the first thing we have to do when we start draping, and I'm sorry, the recording's gonna have all of this talk, but oh well. We're gonna push this away. The first thing we have to do is prep our muslin. So you guys are probably gonna start out with something like this. I want to show you how to deal with this to make your life easier. So this is called the selvage edge. So all fabric has a manufactured edge, and you'll be able to see it. See, it's like got this little fringe. It's very uniform. It's obvious that there's an edge. This edge is torn. You can tell that edge is torn or cut. So they either cut your fabric or you can tear it. So this is the selvage edge. It's manufactured, and that's how you can tell where your length grain is. The length grain is the warp of your fabric. So I know this is very detailed, but it's very important that you know these things when you're draping and pattern making. So, and you should have learned this in sewing, so hopefully it sounds familiar, at least to you. So when you get your muslin and you open it up, because you guys are going to have this recording and you're going to fast forward my whole discussion there about, and you're going to watch this, you're going to open up your fabric and you're going to measure down with your measuring tape 24 inches, because we want to have 2 pieces of fabric. So in order to get this, these 2, we need to start with this. We need to start with a front and we need to start with a back. So we're going from here, what we buy at the store or order online, and then we're gonna get to this, and then we're gonna get to this, okay? So the measurements are, write it down. You're gonna take the top of your fabric and you're gonna see this torn edge that's looks torn and inconsistent, and you're gonna see this nice manufactured edge, and you're gonna measure along the manufactured edge down to 24. And then you're just gonna snip it with your scissors and tear. So like this. And all I did was snip like half an inch, just a little snip, half inch. And then I'm gonna tear the rest. It's very important that you tear your muslin. You don't want any cut edges. So this fabric right here, all the edges are torn, 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 torn. No cuts. It's all torn. So and you're gonna just tear, this fabric is probably 60 inches long because it was made on a loom that was 60 inches long. So fabric comes in bolts, right? Do all of you guys know what bolts are? Fabric bolts, you know, those. So they come in different lengths. Some of them are 45, some of them are 60. So this is 60, so I'm just tearing all the way across. And this is my 24 inches of muslin that I'm gonna work with. Okay. So now I can take this mess and I can put this aside. So you can just fold this up and put it away. You're gonna use it in our class. Put it over there. Because it gets confusing if you have a bunch of fabric all laying around. So now I have this, it's a smaller piece, and you need two pieces. So one's 24. They're both 24 inches long. They're 24 on the length grain, and one is, see my notes. One is 15 and one is 13 wide. So the widths are different. So the next thing I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna tear off my selvage edge, because remember, we want all our edges torn. So I'm just gonna snip. I just can't see my back. Snip and tear it off. All right. So now this is my length grain, right? The selvage edge is my length grain, which is also called the warp. They all mean the same thing. Length grain, warp, selvage edge. It's the vertical length. The weft is the cross grain. It's going horizontally. So now I'm measuring across. And I need a 13-inch width. So I'm gonna do that and snip. Yeah, just measured like that, snip. And tear. And now I need a 15-inch. The 13 is for the back, because our backs are, the back is smaller than the front. The front has the bust on it, so it needs more fabric. And this one is 15 for the front. So same thing. And you're gonna tear it like that. So then you can take this excess muslin, because you don't need it, and put that away with your other group. Fold it up, put that away. And now we're going to take all these threads off. Remember, we want to be nice and neat. So all the threads are off. For you guys. So pulling off all your threads, all the fiber, and then you go to the iron and you're going to iron it out nice and flat. Because when you tear it, all the little fibers, the process of tearing causes the fibers to move. They get pushed. So if you just imagine, you know, tearing and all the little fibers get kind of pushed, so the fabric becomes it's not perfectly square anymore. So we want a perfect square. So you're going to go to the ironing board and you're going to iron this nice and flat, and you're going to do something that's called blocking. So the heat from the iron relaxes the muslin and it makes it easier to block. So the reason this needs to be a nice perfect rectangle is because we won't get the fit that we need when we start using it on the dress form. So it's really important that you're working with the blocked muslin. So I've already pressed and blocked these, and they're nice and perfectly square. Okay. So this, when I'm ironing this on the ironing board, I tug like that to block it. So I'm gonna just, let me show you exactly how it goes over here. Iron's hot. Let's get it hot. You guys can see pretty well. So you'll lay it on the ironing board and get it nice, iron out all the little fibers nice and flat. And when it gets hot, then it's easier to tug. So you can, it's called being off grain. After you tear the fabric, it becomes off grain, and you just tug like this until you get a perfect square. So that's blocking. Blocking is this process of tugging like I'm doing. And then you can fold it like that. And you want to see, you know, that the distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here, right? It needs to be a night. Do you guys understand that?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's important because after you tear it, sometimes the muslin gets really crooked. Mine didn't get that crooked, so I lucked out. But if it's crooked, you want to get it all blocked out. So that's blocking. Do that. You always do that with all your muslin before you start draping. Any questions on blocking? No? Okay. So the next step, so you tear your muslin and you block it. So do we cut our muslin, Tiffany? With the scissors? Are you guys listening? How about Chloe?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute.
Oh,
We tear and then we iron
yeah. Do we tear tear only one edge or all the edges?
all the edges.
Yeah. Do Hanson, do we want to work with muslin that's slightly not square?
No, it has to be like square, right?
Yeah, square. And what is that called? The process of making it square? Anyone?
Sorry, I forgot the name.
Block. It's called blocking.
Okay, okay.
So I'm going to work with front. So I have my back muslin already prepared. I'm going to put it to the side. So this is my front muslin. It is 15 inches wide by 24 inches long. Be sure that when you prepare your muslin that, I guess I should work over here, you guys. Um. Better? Bear with me. This is better, right? Okay, so when you are prepping your muslin, make sure that you have the length grain is 24 inches long, right? Because if you're measuring 24 inches on the cross grain, you're gonna have to re-prep your muslin. And I don't want you guys to have to do that. So Tony, how do I tell where my length grain is?
Your length grain is the salvage edge.
Yep, the selvage. So when you're looking for your length grain, find the selvage. And that'll be an easy way. There's other ways to identify it, but for now, I'm just gonna let you guys go with the selvage because that's the easiest. Now, I did tear the selvage off on one edge because I didn't want it on my prepared muslin, right? I tore it off, but I still have the selvage edge on the other end of the fabric as a guide. So even though you've torn one side off, there's two sides to the fabric when it's on the loom. So both sides have selvage. So you can tear that one side off to prep your muslin, but you still have the other side as a guide for you in the future. Because this needs to be the length grain, the 24 inches, where it's not going to drape properly. The reason we use the length grain for the vertical is because it doesn't stretch as much. So when I hold this and I pull, it's not really stretching, but when I pull the cross grain, I get a little bit of give, Here, not so much, but here more. So we want our clothes to hang on the length grain so they don't stretch. That's why everything's made on the length grain, so it doesn't stretch. Bias is the diagonal. So if I pull on my fabric diagonally, it's super stretchy. And that's a very beautiful way of designing using the bias. You can make really fitted designs without having zippers and seams necessarily. So, but right now, I just want you to focus on the length grain and the cross grain. So I have my piece finished. It's 15 by 24. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my center front. So there's some terminology that you guys are going to get used to. The center front and the center back, side seam, neckline. You'll get used to all this terminology. And Chloe, this might be like coming back to you from working in Clo 3D. If you're gonna take the Hojin's class, you definitely want to take my class first because it helps you so much. So spread the word to people and take this class first because must be really hard to do Clo without having some pattern making. All right, so back to the prepping. After it's torn and blocked, now I'm going to add my center front. So I'm going to take a thumbtack. I know it's not on the supply list because usually we do this in class and I give everyone my thumbtack. But, I think there's some thumbtacks in the sewing lab when you get in there. Or I'll leave some in there for you guys if you don't have one. But this is called dropping a grain line. So you want to drop a grain line an inch in from the center front. So this is going to be my center front. And I'm going to measure over. I'm just going to eyeball it because part of becoming a really strong designer is being able to eyeball. Just like when you're sewing, you can eyeball your 1/2 inch seam allowance. That's what you want to be. Everything is by eye. And that just takes time. So I'm gonna eyeball my 1 inch. You guys can measure whatever if you're not comfortable eyeballing, measure it. You know, use your ruler, measure over. So I'm gonna drop my grain line 1 inch from the edge. This is on the length grain. And this is kind of tricky. I like to keep it on the table like this. So my pin is touching the table and I'm pulling the muslin like this. See how I'm doing that? So that's the technique, slowly but surely, because you want to keep it 1 inch all the way down, right? You don't want it to be 1 inch here, then be 2 inches down here. You want it to be the same all the way down. You're pulling a grain line so that this is perfectly on grain. Because remember, this bodice we're draping, our goal is to make that sloper. That sloper is going to be the basic building block of all our designs. So we want everything to be accurate. So it does get more creative, trust me, but there is some technical aspects at the beginning. So I dropped my green line and then I draw it in. With my pencil. So you want to have a nice #2 pencil. I know a lot of you have light hands and you write really light, not very dark. So in this class, you got to get used to like darkening up your lines. You know, I want to see a nice strong pencil line. And I'm just following down the grain. Just like that. There's my center front. And I'm going to mark it. I want you guys to mark it. It'll be easier. Just a little CF. Backwards CF. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to measure down from our center front 5 inches. So I'm just taking my ruler. I'm going to use my measuring tape. Stay consistent. If you're using one or the other, just pick one and stay consistent. So measuring tape works better because we have to measure the dress form. So we're going to be measuring the dress form and we need the measuring tape to do that. So I'm using my measuring tape, 5 inches. And I'm just going to do a little cross line. You can see. If you can't see, let me know. So that's going to be my neckline. And the next line I want to do is my bust. So I need to measure that on my dress form. Okay, so this is my neckline right here, and I'm going to take this off. These are the kind of pins that you guys want to get. I know if you are a sewer and you've been in the sewing lab, you use the ones with the ball. We can't use those. I need you guys to get these. And it's on this supply list, the kind to get. These are the ones that you need to use when you're draping and pattern making. So no ball-headed pins. So I'm going to put this aside. This is my neckline. I just measured down on my muslin for 5 inches for that. Now I'm measuring from the neckline to the bust on this is my center front. So from the neckline to there is about 7.5. So that's what I'm marking on my muslin. So here's my neckline. I'm marking down 7.5. And that's now right here at my bust, I'm going to square a line across. So now I'm just taking my L square, lining it up against my center front and square it across. So after I've squared that across, then the next measurement I want to take is from the center front bust to the apex. Oops, sorry, you guys can't see. So this is the bust and the apex is the highest point on the bust. So I know it's still, it seems funny. I had a bunch of guys one term and they're all laughing, about it. But yeah, this is the apex and that's where we're going to be pinning into. But I need this distance here. So right at the apex to that center front is like 3.5. So that's what I'm gonna measure on here. Across 3.5. And another little crosshair with, it's just a little straight line that is perpendicular. See, like that. And then I'm going to drag a grain line down from there. So I'm going to use my thumbtack again. And do the same technique of dragging my grain line down. And I'm going to pencil it in. So what is this process called? What am I doing right now? I'm prepping the muslin. So yeah, it should be 3.5 all the way down. It is. And now I'm drawing this in. Making sure. So my muslin is a little bit wrinkled for my taste, so I'm just gonna give it a quick press before I start draping. I'll be right back. I like to have nice, freshly pressed, crisp muslin so that my design looks nice and neat. Good. Okay. So. Now I'm ready to go to the dress form. So I blocked my muslin, I tore it, I blocked it, and now I prepped it. And now I get to go to the dress form. And again, sorry, this is so awkward. During COVID, I used 2 cameras and it was nice. I had my close-up camera, my zoom out camera. So, I'm not used to having to repan in and out all the time. So when we're draping, we always drape on the right side of the dress form. So you never use the left, you're always using the right. So just get into a habit of using the right side. the first thing I do is I put the pin into where my apex is. And then I'm gonna pop it into the apex on the dress form. That way I get everything properly positioned on the muslin. And I'm gonna use like 3 pins. Because I want it to stay stable. I don't want it to move. This is my pivoting point. So this seam allowance here, this 1 inch, I'm gonna fold that back. I'm gonna fold it back and I'm gonna pin my neckline where I marked my neckline right there at the neck. Oops.
So when you said like fold back, does it mean that you hide it inside?
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
So when you said like fold back like that 1 inches, is that you fold it in and then hide it?
Oh, yeah, so you just fold it in and hide it, yep.
Okay,
Yeah, this on that pencil line, you dropped a grain line, so it's really easy to fold it.
Okay.
Super easy to fold that back. Usually I even usually I'll pin it, but I didn't. Today, but usually I'll put a few pins in it to keep it held back. And then when I start pinning the muslin to the dress form, I just take the pins out. So yeah, you can fold it back or pin it, but this technique might be better for you guys. Pin it first. And it'll just be easier to manage, and you finger press it. You just finger press it. You don't have to press it with the iron. You shouldn't press it with the iron. The iron affects the grain, you know, if you just want to finger press it lightly. Like I said, the heat from the iron changes things. So you can fold it back and pin it like that. First thing you do, pin the muslin here, because this is your stabilizing point. Then you're going to smooth the muslin up with your hand, pin it here at the neck. Then you can work down. You can take this pin out and pin at the center front, just like that. So I'm not going to put another pin here because we want to leave this open. So I'm going to just put that pin there. This pin, I'll take this out and I want to pin right here at the center front. So this is really important. You want to keep, you know, a finger's width in here. You don't want this flat, because when you're wearing the garment, if that's flat, it won't fit right. When you're wearing the garment, it's got to be open. You got to have space there. So I'm going to put one more pin right here. And I'm just going to leave this open. So, right? Don't forget that. Pin, and I'm pinning straight down my center front. So I know all this terminology is new to you guys, but you'll get used to it as you do it. And then right here on the waist, there's tape. Dress forms have a waist tape. We're going to be using the center of the tape. We're not going to use the top. We're not going to use the bottom. We're always just going to stay consistent and use the center. So I pinned right at the center of the tape. So after I've done that, now the next thing I'm going to do is take this cross grain line. This is my balance line, and I'm going to balance it out, because see how it's draping? I want to get it balanced. It needs to be parallel to the ground. So you just, you know, you might need to turn your dress form. You might need to move it up and down. You want to just eyeball it, make sure it's parallel, and I'm smoothing it out and I'm pinning it into place. And then I'm going to just this piece here, you just kind of push it up like this. We'll deal with that later. Now I'm going to smooth straight down the side seam, and I'm just going to pin right along the side seam. When I get down to the waist tape, I'm going to pin right in the center of the waist tape. And I'm feeling some tension here from the muslin, so I'm gonna snip. So this is the fun part. This is where you get to snip. You wanna snip not too close, because we need to have seam allowance. So remember when you're sewing, we have seam allowance. Same thing when we're making our patterns and draping, we need that seam allowance. So it's gonna be a 1/2 inch, so don't snip all the way up. Leave some space, but you can, I got in there, I left about 1 inch. And I'm gonna just snip a little more here. I can even take this away. Now it's like laying flatter. This is kind of bothering me, so I'm gonna snip up. And I can take this away. Again, we're gonna have a 1/2 inch seam allowance down here too at the waist, so I don't wanna snip too far. But now this is much more relaxed and I can actually re-pin. I can take my pins and adjust them a little because it's more relaxed. And I can get a better fit. So I'm smoothing and I want a better fit. And that's the art of draping, is the snipping and the pinning, and I'm even gonna shorten this up a little because I need to snip up like that. See how it just relaxed? Snip up here. I'm not going too far into the waist. So now I've got this. What do you think I need to do with this? Anyone? Tony? Howard? Anyone know?
You have to make a dart. A dart?
Yeah, a dart. So hopefully you guys know what a dart is or have heard of a dart. If not, that's okay. You're gonna learn. So this is where my dart's gonna go. So remember this little bodice here that we're making. It has a dart right here and a dart right here. So we're gonna make this dart. So I've pinned here, I can even, and I'm gonna put a pinch of ease here in the waist. Before I take my dart, I'm gonna get my pinch of ease, because she needs to breathe, right? She might wanna eat something, so we're gonna give her a little pinch. So with the pinch, I just, literally it's a pinch, it's 1/8 of an inch, and I'm just folding it right on the waist tape. And I'm gonna put a pin in it. To hold it like that. Now I can take my dart. So until, I can't take my dart yet, because the muslin's pulling, I need to trim it a little bit. I need to release the tension. This is releasing the tension. So I can have a nice flat. So, and this dart, I want it right on my princess line. So these dress forms, they have seams. You can see this big seam right here. That's your side seam. You can feel it. So when you're draping, you're feeling that seam. You can feel the princess seam right here. This is the princess seam. It cuts through the body, straight through the hat, straight through the body. And that's where I want my dart to be, right on that princess seam. So I feel it on the other side, and I'm just gonna place my dart right in that area. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, just right in that area. And then you take your pin and you pin the dart back. And I'm pinning at the waist tape again. All my pins are at the waist tape in the center, and I pinned it just like that. So I pinned it differently. These other pins I'm just sticking into the muslin. This pin I'm actually picking the dart up like that at the waist. And it's tight. I've pinched it tight to the waist. And I'm gonna finish pinning the muslin to the waist. I'm gonna snip this off. I don't need it. And some more snips. So as I snipped, it opened things up, it released a little bit, and I'm able to take my pins off and get a better, smoother fit. So now it's laying nice and smooth. So I'm gonna keep pinning my waist in the center. So these pins are important because after we pin, we mark. It's called marking. So there's pinning, marking, and truing. So there's 3 steps to draping. So we tore our muslin, we blocked it, we prepped it. Now we're pinning. Then when I'm done pinning, I'm gonna mark. And then when I'm done marking, I'm gonna true it up. So if I don't have all these pins, I'm not gonna know where to mark. So after we're done pinning, you use your pencil. So that's why I need to have all these pins showing you where I'm gonna mark. And it's also holding the muslin in place. So I'm done here with the bottom. This is good. Now I'm gonna come up to the neck. So I can release this. And I wanna deal with my neck. So let me get, you guys can't see. Whoops. Okay. So up here at the neck, I'm gonna smooth, I want to smooth this out, and then I'm gonna cut straight down. Again, I don't wanna go too far into the seam allowance, and I can cut this away. So I'm smoothing this out. Now, I'm making sure that I'm smoothing all the way out to my shoulder here. So this muslin needs to reach to my shoulder seam. So there's another seam up here. There's the neckline and there's a pin that's at the intersection of the shoulder and the neck. And my muslin needs to reach that point. So I want to make sure that I can get all the way back there. And I'm going to snip down like this to release the muslin. So do you see that? Down. I'm gonna pin at that intersection of the neck and the shoulder. So it's holding, and then I can keep cutting. And I'm gonna double pin at the neck because I don't want my neck to disappear. It's pulling. There's a lot of pulling, so I don't want it. I put 2 pins here to stabilize the neck so it doesn't get pulled away. And now I can just keep snipping until I get it smooth. So you'll get used to this when you start doing it. It's a little scary at first, but then you'll see how the muslin relaxes. Oh, my lights are going. Let me go turn the lights on, you guys. Oh, see, it's already smoothed out. It's getting nice and smooth. And then I'm gonna double pin my neck and shoulder so it doesn't move. And I'm gonna pin my neck into place. I'm not happy with it, so I'm gonna release it a little more even. And now I'm pinning around the neck. So it stays in place. just like that. So now I can smooth and pin the shoulder. So I'm feeling with my fingers. I can feel where the seam is, and that's why a good dress form is everything. So this is a Wolf dress form, and they're the best. Unfortunately, the company went out of business. So these are all like vintage that we have, but we do have PGM. We have some other brands that are pretty good too, but you want to be able to feel the seams. So I'm just snipping and I'm pinning right on the seam line. All the way out to the edge of the shoulder. So this is my armhole here. This here is my armhole. And that's the screw. This is called the plate, and that's the screw. So I'm pinning to the edge of the armhole right before it falls. So there's a ridge. This is called the ridge. Right here where it falls. So I pin to the edge of that ridge. Pinning there. I hope you guys are taking notes. So I'm done with that. So I have my nice clean neck and shoulder. So now I can lift it up, and now I can concentrate on the dart. On the side seam. So this is our princess line dart, and this is our side seam dart. So I'm going to take these pins out. And all this excess right here is going to become a dart. So I don't want this excess fabric sticking out in my armhole. I want to bring it nice and smooth down into a dart. So again, I'm grabbing right on the line. The line is going to be this balance line is the center of my dart. And I'm pinching it just like I did below with the princess line, and I'm gonna use the pin and pin right on the side seam. Then I can go back and pin right here under the armhole. So this is my plate, and I'm going to pin right at the top of the plate there at the side seam. And if I want, I can cut some of this out of the way. I'm not going to need it. Make sure everything is fitting properly. So I pinned right under here, under the plate, and then I'm going to pin right along the side seam. So I can feel the side seam, and I'm just using my fingers to feel it, and I smooth the muslin and pin. So that's my finished bodice pinned. Got my dart in here. And my dart, my other dart, my princess line dart, my side seam dart. So now I'm ready to mark it. There's two things that I forgot to mark just now that I noticed. So darts have a vanishing point. So this dart sort of starts to vanish right here. Usually they vanish about at least an inch from the apex. So it's mostly just by eye. I'm just by eye finding the vanishing point, and I'm marking it with a little pin like this. And I'm going to find the vanishing point on this dart. On this dart, it's much easier to see. I can see right away that it's like right here. And I know it's over here, but I'm going to put it on my balance line. So just at the same place, but on my balance line. Like that. And this one's on the balance line, on the cross grain balance line, like that. So when you don't have a vanishing point, that's when you get the Madonna cone-like bra. Who knows Madonna? Have you guys, I can't remember which video What video is it? Vogue, I think. Or I can't remember, but she has the cone-shaped bra. You know, that's how you get the pointy bra, the pointy look, is if you don't have a vanishing point. Vanishing point gives you that soft cup. So I marked my vanishing points and now I'm done. I'm done pinning. Now I'm gonna mark it with the pencil. So I like to start up here at the neck. I'm just spinning my pencil. So I'm kneeling along the seam and I'm spinning it like that and I get a dot. So I'm following that seam where my neckline is and where I have my pins and I'm making the dots. So pattern making, draping, it's all very specific. Like you can't, you know, it's a dot. It's not a dash. It's not a line. It's a dot. And then when I get up here to this intersection, I'm gonna do a cross. So I marked it just like this. Can you guys see that? Don't go anymore. So it's a little crosshair. See that? Whenever I'm at an intersection, I'm gonna do a cross and then I'm gonna mark across the shoulder. Same thing, dotting it. And I'm feeling for the seam because you want to be on the seam. When I get to the ridge, I am making a cross. I'm going right on the edge of the ridge. I want my line to be right on this ridge. You don't need to mark the armhole. The only thing you need to mark is where the screw is. So the screw is like right there, the same level. The level of the screw is right there and you just go like that. And then you mark under the arm plate with that cross. There's an intersection here, the armhole and the side seam, and I want to mark a cross. And then I'm going to do the same thing down the side seam with my dots. I'm going to mark my dart like this. I'm just going to rub the pencil like that on that side and like this on the other side. And I'm going to keep marking all the way down. Make sure your pin is right on the side seam though. It's not up here. All the way down. When I get down to the waist, I'm gonna do a crosshair on the waist. Like that. And then I'm gonna mark the center of the tape with my dots. And I'm gonna mark this dart as well, the same way. And then when I get to the center front, I'm just gonna do a dash. Just like my dash on neckline. So there is a small dash right there at the neckline. I'm just filling it in. So it looks like that. And then I need to mark my vanishing points. So I'm just rubbing over the pin like that. And then I'm done marking. So always double check after you pin, like, did I mark everything? Because it's a bummer if you have to put it back on the dress form and remark. Okay, so you just want to double check, did I get my vanishing points? Got all the intersections, I marked my waist. It looks good, so then you can start taking off the pins. And this is when we take the muslin and we put it on the table and we true up the lines. So this is the truing part. So we get to put it on the table and true up the lines. What time is it? It's almost 4. So I'm going to show you how to true it up and then we'll take a break, okay? Any questions so far? Nothing? How are you guys all doing with the fire and everything? Are you guys okay? Yeah. Um,
Are you doing okay with the fires? Did you?
I am doing okay, you guys. I am doing okay. But you guys all have places to live? And yeah? Okay. All right.
I actually had a quick question.
Yeah.
For I think the armhole on the side, I think maybe I missed it, but did you do a little dash for the like the middle of the armhole? Not the not the yes there. Did you do a little line?
Yep, so this is the screw in
Right.
the. So you just wanna kind of eyeball where that screw is.
Okay.
To the armhole, and that's where you mark it like this,
Okay.
this mark,
Okay. Thank you.
just like a dash. Yeah. Well, okay. So now that it's on the table, the first thing I'm gonna do is lay it flat. I can get you guys a better view. Such a bummer. I'm not happy with this camera. I need an above camera. All right, well, the first thing I'm gonna do is tackle my darts. So I'm gonna unpin them because I've marked everything, so I'm safe. And I'm gonna need my rulers, my curves. I need my French curve and my hip curve and my 18-inch ruler. And I can lay it flat. So now it's nice and flat, like this. And the first thing I want to do is draw in my darts. So I'm gonna measure. Well, because this dart is on the cross grain line, I know that's in the center. So it should be in the center, at least somewhat in the center. So it's pretty close there. So now I'm just gonna draw in from my vanishing point. I'm gonna line up my ruler at the tip of the vanishing point down here to the end of my dart leg. And I'm gonna draw in my first dart leg. So that's called a dart leg. And now I'm gonna do the other side. Draw in another dart leg. Like that. And I'm gonna make my vanishing point more prominent. Like that. Okay. Now I'm gonna do the other dart. My side dart. Same thing. And the other side. And I'm gonna make my vanishing point crosshair more prominent like that. It looks like that. Okay, and now I'm gonna close my darts. So who knows how to close your darts? Which way does the intake go? So this intake here, I'm gonna take my dart leg on the right, and I'm gonna like this. I'm gonna take the right dart leg and fold it over to the left dart leg, and I'm gonna match up the two lines. So this intake here, this part is facing towards the center front. So that's something you always want to remember. If you've done a lot of sewing or you remember from sewing lab, the dart intake always points towards the center front, and in the back, it points towards the center back. So you just want to kind of get that mantra solidified in your head, so you always know which way to point the dart intake. And I'm just going to grab it and I'm going to match it to the other side right on the waist, and I'm going to start pinning my dart. So always pin into the fold. So this is the fold side. So I'm pinning into the fold like that. And I'm just using the line, this leg, and I'm matching the other leg up to the other side. I don't know how much dart experience you guys have, but that's how you close a dart. If you've done sewing, this might be pretty redundant for you. I just want to get my dart closed, and I'm pinning as far as I can go. I like to pin on a slant. So I always pin on a slant and into the fold. I can only go so far because the intake starts to disappear. So I go up as high as I can. So part of what you get graded on in draping is like how neatly your pins are placed, you know, and how, you know, how well you've, did you place your darts correctly? Did you leave a pinch of ease? Did you, drop your neckline? We're not there yet, but like, these are the things that you want to think about. So now this side dart, it's a little different. You want the intake to go down. So if your dart is horizontal, you want the intake pointing down towards the feet of your body. So I'm doing the same thing, folding each leg to the other side. This time the dart intake goes down. And making my nice clean darts. So we want to have this front bodice piece pinned and trued up because we're going to pin it back onto the dress form in order to make our back bodice. Because we want this to match to the back. You want the two to fit together. The two puzzle pieces need to fit together. So there, I have my nice bust. Whoops. Bust that's starting to form. So darts are done, and then now I'm going to do my neck. I'm going to drop my neckline a 1/4 inch. We always drop the neckline a 1/4 inch. So I'm just lining up my ruler, drop it a 1/4 inch, and then I take my French curve and lay it in against my notches here at the shoulder and the neck and my neckline, and I dropped it a 1/4 and I squared it off. When you are at the center front or at the side seam, you always want to square it off about a 1/4 inch. And I can explain that to you guys later. Just trust me on that for now. And then you take your French curve and you lay it in on the dots. They don't have to be perfect. A lot of this is an art. And you create your beautiful neckline curve like that. Now I'm going to do my shoulder. So when I do my shoulder, I like to dip it. So I dip it first right here. So it's sloping down, that's my dip. And I'm loosely following my dots, and then I flip it and I do a little curve here. And I'm matching this line up with the crosshair here. So, because our shoulders, they are curved. There's no straight lines on the human body. No straight lines. My shoulder dips down and it pops up, right? Feel your shoulder. So I want that curve. because we're doing couture here. We're making couture beautiful garments that are fitted. So after I've done my shoulder, now I'm gonna do my armhole. First I want to true up my side seam though. So I'm using the straight ruler for this. I know this side seam's not perfectly straight, but we're just gonna go with a straight line for this class. And I'm connecting my waist and side seam and my armhole and side seam. And now I'm gonna drop this an inch. So we always drop our armhole because this particular bodice is for a set-in sleeve. Does anyone know what a set-in sleeve is? So this is this is a knit, my sweater, but it's set in. So see, there's a sleeve here, and this is the armhole. So that sleeve is set into the armhole. So this is sleeveless, right? There's no sleeve. So when you're making a pattern for something that's sleeveless, you only drop it a 1/2 inch. When you're doing a sleeve, you need to drop it an inch. That's because we need movement, right? You want to move your arm, right? So you need that room to move when you have the sleeve. So I'm going to go ahead and drop this an inch. This. So that's my new armhole now. And this is my shoulder up here. And this is where my screw is. So I'm going to lay my French curve right in here, and I'm laying it on top of where I dropped it. And I'm matching it, the top of my French curve with my shoulder. I've laid it in here where my side seam is, where I dropped it. And I'm looking at where I marked the plate. And that's just kind of a guide right here. You don't want to be past that. Like you don't want your armhole to be over here. So you want it to be like kind of in the middle of that screw where that is. Right out there, just like that. And now I'm going to draw in my beautiful armhole. So there's my armhole. And now I'm going to do my waist. So my waist, I use the hip curve for that. And I'm following my dots that I drew in. I'm going to square off my side seam first. Remember, why do we square off the side seam, Chloe? You remember?
Sorry, I don't remember.
Howard or Hanson, do you remember why we square off? Oh, I didn't tell you guys. So we want to square off here at the side seam, at the center front, because these are areas where we're going to connect. So we're going to connect the front to the back, right? If we don't square it off, it's going to be a funky fit kind of thing. Up here at the neck, if you don't square it off, if it's like pointed like this, and it's, say this is cut on the fold, so that means that we lay our pattern piece on the fabric, and then when we open it up, we have the other side. Do you guys understand? If you don't square it off, you're going to end up with this weird divot. It's going to be like that. You're going to have this weird divot in your neck. So that's why we need to square it off, unless you wanted that for some reason. But you'll see that more in action as we keep learning. So now that I squared it off, so everything's going to fit together when I add my back, I can draw it in. And this is art, you know, you're matching up your waist and your center front with your dots, and they're not necessarily perfectly on the dots, but you just want to create a beautiful line that's connected. So see, And that's truing. So the last part of truing is adding your seam allowance. So 1/2 inch, I'm gonna fold my 1 inch seam allowance back. Want that to be a part of this, and I just lay my ruler like this. Hope you guys can see. I'm laying my 1/2 inch line here on the line of the waist. And then I'm doing these dashes. So again, this is pattern making technique. You take the ruler, you lay the 1/2 inch line on the waist, and then you do a dash. This is how you transfer the curve of the waist to the curve at the end of the seam allowance. So this is my cut line, and this is my stitch line. And I'm transferring the curve to my cut line. And I'm gonna do the same thing on my side seam all the way up. Again, 1/2 inch. And I'm gonna do a 1/2 inch on my armhole. All the way around. And then I'm gonna cut the seam allowance away. So the neck is a 1/4 inch. So I'm only gonna add a 1/4 inch to the neck. We only do a 1/4 inch because the neck is such a small curve. It's hard to have a 1/2 inch seam allowance on such a tiny curve. So we do a 1/4 inch. And then you can go ahead. We're not gonna cut this, the side seam, we're gonna leave that because we wanna match this up to the back bodice when we do the back bodice. So leave this, but you can go ahead and cut along your cut line on your shoulder and your neck. Go just like this all the way around. And that's it for now, you guys. I wish you guys could go do it. So I'm gonna turn off the recording. Normally when I demo in class, I don't do all of that in one demo. All right. Oh, we're missing Howard. Okay. All right, well, we'll get started. So I said that I would show you how to prep the back. So you guys already know how to tear and block. So I'm going to show you how to finish prepping the back. And then when we're in person, I'll show you how to drape, pin, and true up the back so that you'll have both the front and the back together. All right. I'm going to go back to my perch over here. And when you're working in Clo 3D, there's different ways that you can, different techniques to make patterns. And I'll show you. One technique is using the sloper in Clo. So like all of this that you're learning here is applicable to Clo and applicable to real life. I'm giving you guys a whole like closet full of tools to use and mix and match. And I'm trying to help you guys see how you put it together because it is a 14-week class and you're learning a lot. So just we're gonna get through it together. All right. So prepping this, let me get you guys zoomed in. It's very similar to the front. But this time, my seam allowance, my center back is on the other side. Okay? Don't make that mistake. I'm gonna get the dress form. So, so on the front, my 1 inch, we had our 1 inch seam allowance in our center front. It was on this side of the muslin, but on the back, it's gonna be here. So this grain line that I dragged and I made my 1 inch, it's gonna be on this side. So when you're making your, we're gonna measure down and mark the neck, and we're gonna measure down and mark across the shoulder. You wanna make sure that your center back is on this side, not on this side, because on the front, it's on this side. So just be mindful of that. So I'm this way. Being mindful of where my center back is. Does that make sense? I saw some of you nodding. So here's my back. It's a little narrower. You know, the back of our body is not, the back of a female body isn't as wide because we don't have the bust. So a little narrower. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna measure down for our neck, but we're gonna measure down 4 inches. So on the front, does anyone remember what we measured down? We went,
5 inches.
yes, 5 inches, right on. So in the back, we're gonna go down 4 inches. So and I use my measuring tape. I try to be consistent. So measuring tape. Because you know, they all vary a little bit, right? All these measuring devices, you guys are designers. Yeah, like this one's like a whole 1/4 inch off from my ruler. So I want to be consistent. I use the measuring tape on my front. I'm going to use the measuring tape on my back. I'm using the measuring tape to measure on my dress form. So it's easy. You can't use the ruler to measure on the dress form. You have to use the tape. So I'm just using the tape, and I'm going to measure down 4 inches. Mark. And now the next measurement is on my dress form. So I just marked my neck on my muslin right here. Now I want to mark this measurement, my across shoulder. So that's the shoulder, across shoulder. So I'm using the tape. And it's like 4 and 3/8. So I'm going to mark that on the muslin, measuring down from the neck. Four and 3/8. The same crosshatch, it looks just like this. So I just measured from this line here down 4 and 3/8. Now I'm going to do a square a line across. This is my cross grain. So what is it normally? This is called what? Does anyone remember? The long part of the muslin?
The
Is-
warp.
The
warp.
I'm sorry?
The warp.
The length, yeah, the warp or the length grain. The warp or the length grain, and the selvage edge is on the warp. It's on the length grain. Now we're gonna do a horizontal line, cross grain. So I'm going to use the L square and line it up on my center back and square it across. Like that. I dragged a grain line. I didn't show you that. Remember on the front, we dragged a grain line 1 inch from the edge with our pin. We used the thumbtack and drag that grain line. So you do that first and draw it in. Then you're going to measure down 4 inches for the neck. And then you measure whatever the distance on your dress form is from the neck to the across shoulder. So you need to be doing this with your dress form because this is specific to the measurements on your dress form. Everyone's dress form is slightly different, even if they're the same size. Then the next measurement is across shoulder. So now I'm going to take my tape. And I'm going to go to this, there's a pin at the across shoulder. There should be a pin on all your dress forms. If there isn't, you can email me and I'll help you. So I'm measuring across here and I'm measuring to this ridge. Remember I talked about it earlier when we were draping the front, that there's this ridge on the armhole and it kind of falls off. So I'm going to refer to that a lot. That's the ridge where it's like a cliff where it falls off. Does that make sense to you? Off the dress form. So we measure to that ridge. And mine is just like 1/8 of an inch less than 7. So I'm going to go ahead and mark. Oh, sorry. So you figure that out and then you mark it on. Yes. Then you mark it on your muslin. Down. So mine 7/8. So I marked that. That's the edge of my armhole. And then from this, I'm going to measure back 1 1/4 inches. So I'm just going to use my tape. And I'm going to measure back 1 1/4 inches. And I'm putting another mark. It looks like this. So here's my center back, neck, cross shoulder, all the way across, dragged a line, and then I measured out to the edge of the shoulder, and then I measured back. So 1 1/4 inches back this way, and I marked it. Now I'm going to drag a grain line down this guy that my newest mark that I made. I'm going to drag a grain line down. So again, this is the last grain line you have to drag and draw it in because this is a balance line. It keeps the muslin balanced on the body so that everything stays on grain. It's all about the grain. If your pattern's off grain, because we're making a pattern. We're making a sloper, it's a pattern. And if it's on grain, then the measurements are all correct. Everything's proportional. And we get a better fit because it's all about the fit. It's all about fit. Fit, fit, fit. How does it fit? That's where you make the big bucks. When you have things that fit really well. Uh-oh, I lost someone. Who left? Oh. Okay. And then this is it. Okay. So that's how you prepare your back. muslin. So, and then I'll show you when we get back together how to drape the back. It's gonna have two darts, the shoulder dart and the princess line dart. And that's like your very basic 2-dart bodice. Yeah? Any questions?
So by
Well-
week 3, you want that back as well, right? That back piece.
This piece
Yeah,